Hey everyone, Alex here from Japanese Masters, and today we're going to go over Minna no Nihongo, Lesson 4, Part 4, that is Noun 1 kara, Noun 2 made. Okay, let's go and dive right on into this. Okay, as you can see here, we have our structure, Noun 1 kara, Noun 2 made. Okay, first let's start by translating this into English. What exactly does it mean in English? Well, in English, this is going to be basically from Noun 1 to or until Noun 2. Now, this until from, this can be either a location or a time. But let's go ahead and break it down and then we can explain that in detail. Okay, so we have our structure, noun 1 kara, noun 2 made. The first part of that is noun 1. And like I just said, this is going to be a time or a place that something starts at. So a time being like 8 o'clock, so something starts at 8 o'clock. Or place being like your house. So you start from your house and you're going somewhere. Next we have kara. Kara is a particle that means from in this instance. However, that is not the only meaning that this particle has. In other grammatical structures, it can mean stuff like because. But for now, it's going to just mean from. Just make sure that if you see it, it doesn't always mean from. It can also mean stuff like because, and I think there's a couple other meanings that it can have as well. So make sure to watch out for that. Usually to tell the difference is if it's the because kind of kara, usually it's going to be at the end of a sentence. However, if it's kind of like in between the sentence, kind of in the middle here, it's most likely going to mean from. Okay, next we have our noun 2. So this is going to be your time or your place where something ends. So if you want to say that a party began at 8 p.m., when does it end? It could be a party that goes from 8 p.m. until 10 p.m. This would be your 10 p.m., when it ends. Or it could be where your destination is for where you're going. So from your house to school. School would be the end destination, so that would be your noun 2. And then made is going to be the particle that gives that noun 2 meaning. That's going to say this is where it ends. This is where the location or the time ends. And it usually means until. And that's mostly what its only meaning is. It probably has a couple other functions too. But the main meaning that you're going to see made used for is until. So until something. Or in English, it can be translated to something. So from 8 to 9. From 8 until 9. Something like that. Okay. Another important note is that des can be added after this grammatical structure. So if you just wanted to say the party started at 8 p.m., you could just say like hachiji kara des. It's from 8. And that makes perfect sense. As long as, this is the same rules for dropping as everything else. As long as, the other subjects are, they're well known. So if all of a sudden you just threw into a conversation, hachiji kara des, people will be like, well, what starts at 8? But if you're talking about a party, and you wanted to say when it started, you could just say hachiji kara des. Oh, it just starts from 8. Something like that. So this structure does not always need like a whole verb, phrase, or anything after it. It's another function of des, that as long as the rest of it is kind of implied and people know what you're talking about, just putting des after it will imply the rest, will imply all the verbs and everything that goes along with it. Another important note is that the structure does not need both parts. So, like I was just saying, when I said hachiji kara des, I did not say hachiji kara something something made des. That is because you don't always need this part. Because just like in English, you're not always going to say when something starts and when it ends, or you're not always going to say when something ends while also putting in when it starts. Same thing in Japanese. You can mix and match and use just parts of this structure. So you can say something just begins at 8 with no real clear indication of when it ends, or you can say when something ends with no real clear indication of when it begins. That's perfectly fine. Don't think that this is a set structure that every time you see kara, you're going to have to use made after it, or every time you see made, there should be a kara somewhere in the sentence. These parts are, you can split it up. Okay, let's go ahead and go through a couple of examples for this. Okay, the first example is, I work from 11 to 5. That is, 11時から5時まで働きます. Okay, here is just a very, very simple example of this structure where you have both parts and then you have the verb after it. So when are you starting? When is the start of your shift? That would be 11時, so 11. Now I didn't specify AM or PM here just because I didn't feel like putting that in there. And unless someone, knew that you were working, and, unless it really needed to be specified, it's kind of obvious 11 to 5, unless, you work the graveyard shift, that's most likely going to be during the day. So it's kind of like in English, you can drop the AM and PM when the time is kind of known. So anyway, this is saying you're working from 11, that's Juichiji, and then until 5, Golji. Now, I believe Japanese also do use military time sometimes, so that can also be thrown in here, but I'm just keeping it simple AM, PM kind of time, where it's only in 12-hour blocks. So yeah, you're saying from the thing that goes before it, until this, the thing that goes before made. And then hatarakimasu is just the verb for to work. So that is just saying that you work from 11 to 5. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next example. The next example is the party starts at 7. Party wa shichiji kara desu. Now here's an example of where you don't need the verb at the end of it. A party, if you're going to put in something like a party and then you're going to put shichiji kara, it's implied. You know what's going to happen at 7. If you're mentioning party as the subject or the topic of the sentence, and then you're mentioning a time that something begins, you don't need to put like the verb for to begin or anything after this. You can just put des, and people in Japan are going to know exactly what you're talking about. One of the things about Japanese is it's very fluid. It's very, some people call it vague, but it's just, you have a lot of flexibility when making sentences in the way that you don't always need to be 100% precise like you sometimes have to be in English. You can just omit things like the verb if it's known. You can omit the subject if it's known, stuff like that. So yeah. And this is also an example where you don't need to have the made after. Who knows when the party is going to end? She didn't specify when this party is going to end. All we know is that it's going to begin at 7, but that doesn't make it grammatically incorrect. It's just what the information they decided to give. Maybe there is no set end time. So remember, you don't always need to use kara and made together. They can be separated. Okay, and the last sentence is going to be something new that I want to try. Before we've had these, I've always been giving really, really simple sentences, but now that we're on like lesson 4 of Minna no Nihongo, I want to start going into a little more complex sentences. Sentences where you're probably not going to understand all the grammar that goes into the sentence, but I think it'd be helpful to see some examples of the grammar in sentences that are like, full-length sentences that people would actually say on a normal basis kind of sentences. Not stuff that really just emphasizes the grammar so much, but stuff that the grammar is sprinkled into the sentence. And this long sentence is a perfect example of that. Okay, so the main translation of the sentence would be, even by plane, it takes 4 hours from Seoul to Osaka. Which, in a very, very simplified translation, it would be basically just, it takes 4 hours by plane to get from Seoul to Osaka. But this sentence here, this long sentence, is going to actually emphasize the 4 hours here. But let's start by just reading it. So this is Seoul-shi kara Osaka-shi made hikoki o tsukatte mo 4 jikan mo kakarimasu. Okay, so let's just start breaking this sentence down piece by piece, and we'll see the grammar structure that we learned this lesson, and maybe you can pick up a new grammar structure. But if you don't understand everything, don't worry. A lot of this is grammar that is above this current level, so it's past this chapter in Minna no Nihongo. So let's start with the structure that we learned. So Seoul-shi, this is just Seoul City, as in Seoul City in Korea, the capital of Korea. And then kara, so this is when we're talking about a destination, not time anymore. This is a destination. So the word before kara is going to be where the destination starts, where you're traveling from. The next we have Osaka-shi. This is just Osaka in Japan, the second largest city in Japan. The one where I actually completed my study abroad. So this is going to be the end location. This is where the trip is going to end. So you're starting in Seoul, ending in Osaka. So yeah, we have both of these here, and this is where things can get a little bit complicated because basically all of this uses grammar that we haven't learned yet. But let's just break this down, and we can go through each little piece here. So hikoki. This is plane in Japanese. It just means airplane. That's really all there is to it. And this is tsukau, is the dictionary form of this verb, and that just means to use. So when this combined with the o particle, making it the direct object, all it's saying is to use a plane. Now this structure right here, temo, We're not going to go into how to create this or anything from Tsukao, from Tsukao into Tsukatemo, but just know that this means even if. So you're saying even if you use a plane, then something happens. And it's a structure that I don't think is actually covered maybe until JLPT in 4, but it's an important thing to know. And so this is saying even if you travel by a plane, we have then yon jikan, 4 hours. So it's just saying that there's 4 hours. And then we have mo kakarimasu. Kakarimasu means it requires or is needed. So we have jikan kakarimasu. It's basically saying it requires 4 hours. 4 hours are needed to do this. And then we have the mo particle here. Now this can get a little bit confusing because this isn't just your standard also kind of mo. It is, but it isn't. Let's go ahead and go through the whole sentence one more time, and then I'll really explain what this mo kind of means in this context. So the direct translation of this would be from Seoul to Osaka, even if you use a plane, requires 4 hours, or it requires 4 hours, or something like that. That'd be kind of the direct translation. However, by using this structure here, tsukatemo, what you're really doing is you're emphasizing the 4 hours. You're emphasizing that that's how long it's going to take to get to Osaka. And maybe you're emphasizing it because it takes a little bit too long. You're saying, man, even by plane, it's going to take 4 hours to get to Osaka. So maybe you're late or something like that, or you're just surprised about the distance, that you thought maybe it was closer. So you're saying, man, even by plane, it's going to take 4 hours. And that's kind of where the mo comes into play. So what this is kind of implying is that you're saying, so even if I use a plane, it's going to take 4 hours. So by saying even if, you're kind of saying that you've eliminated other possibilities, like car or boat. And those are where the mo comes into play. Because it's not just a single instance. It's not just the plane, it's going to take 4 hours to go by plane. By saying even if, you're saying out of all the options, you're using the fastest option. So there are multiple options, but even if you use the fastest option, it's still going to take 4 hours. So that's why we use the mo here, is because you're kind of talking about all those other options, the boat or the car, which I don't think car is even possible, but you're saying out of all those other options, this one is still, or this one also is going to take 4 hours, or at least 4 hours to do. So this is complicated, and it's kind of really hard to explain, but just kind of go with that. When you're using this right here, the even if, you are implying that there are other options. If there was only one option to get from Seoul to Osaka, just one, there's 0 other options, that is the only way to get it, you wouldn't really use even if. It's the same thing in English, like if you said, even if I study tomorrow, I'm not going to pass, or something like that. There is another option. Your other option is to not study. So you're saying, those 2 options, out of those 2 options, the better one would be, of course, to study, but you're saying even if you do study, you're probably not going to pass. So that's kind of what this is saying. Even out of all the other options of ways to travel from Seoul to Osaka, you're not. It's still going to take 4 hours. So the mo is implying that there's going to be multiple routes, and this one is still or also going to take 4 hours, or at least 4 hours, or it's still going to take some time. It's also going to take some time. So in this instance, the teimo is going to be used to emphasize this. And yet again, if after all that you're still completely confused, don't worry. Like I said, this is more advanced structure. I just wanted to kind of start introducing you to a little bit more advanced structure. So this could be a total sentence that anyone could say in Japanese, and it would sound natural, and it would sound like a sentence that you might actually hear when you're going to Japan. These other sentences you might actually hear and stuff like that, but they are a little more simplified so that we can emphasize the grammar. But I hope that makes sense. If all you take away from this is that this is the starting location and this is the ending location, that is completely fine. But for anyone else who picked up any of this other stuff, just start getting it into your mind, because it's going to be stuff that when we get to the higher levels, it'd be great if you have a foundation or a general knowledge of that topic. Okay, so that is the end of today's lesson. I hope you like that little more advanced sentence at the end there. I might try to do that a couple more times. Every now and then throw a more advanced sentence, something that's, kind of difficult to translate, but will get you introduced into more advanced grammar. So if you like that, please tell me in the comments below. If you thought it was a waste of time, also put that in the comments below. I'd be happy to get your opinion on that matter. If you have any questions at all about this or any of the other stuff, go ahead and put that in the comments below as well. I'd be happy to answer that. Also, just want to make a quick announcement that my site that I redesigned for Japanese to help teach people Japanese, and also just start a community of Japanese learners. You can visit that in the link. There's a link for it in the description below. I actually just created a forum for the website, so if you have any questions about maybe lessons that are further in the future from this one, so like if you have a question about Chapter 7 of Minna no Nihongo, as you can see, even me posting a video of roughly every 2 days or so, it'll take a while till I get there. So if you have a question about any chapter after this, go ahead and jump onto the forum, sign up for a quick account. It's free. It'll take you half a minute. I only need you to create an account just so that I don't get spammed on the website. So create a quick account, put the comment there, or put the question there, and I'll be happy to answer it as quick as possible. So that way, if you have any question about any of the Minna no Nihongo, put those questions there, and I'll be happy to answer them. Until next time, guys, keep studying Japanese. All right, everyone, see ya.